Hi folks, I'm in the middle here of Park Avenue. It's going to probably get a little loud. It's a hot day, 95 degrees. I'm finding a little piece of shade. I'm here at 740 Park. This is the richest address in Manhattan. If you live at 740 Park, you've arrived. It used to be the apartment of John Rockefeller II. It was a 26-room apartment. Now it's occupied. His old apartment is occupied by Stephen Schwartzman. It's a name you might know. His truck stopped right in front of us here. But actually 750 yeah, 750 Park, which is right there. I'm babbling this camera a little. Bear with me a little bit. You're gonna have to bear with me because this is not the best. I'm thinking that's 750. Yeah, 750. 750 got mentioned in the Warren Commission documents, which is next door to John Rockefeller II. Now, that was Uncle George's address, Oswald's best friend. Now here, how many people can count Rockefellers as their next door neighbors? All right. Well, here's 740. Yeah, this was the home of John Rockefeller II, Nelson's father. And he died in around 1960, just before Rockefeller's murdered Kennedy. I don't know how involved he was. I don't know how involved he was planning his. You know, I think the whole assassination plot began in 1958. I believe the Rockefellers were planning to assassinate Nixon because Nelson Rockefeller was preparing a path to the White House. But it's just, this Uncle George, you know, his name is in the Warren Commission. This address, 750, is in the Warren Commission, and it's next door to the Rockefellers. Okay, what does that tell you? Isn't it funny that all the people connected with the Kennedy assassination all live next door to Rockefellers? That strike was odd. Now, 750 might have been a mistake. It's possible it was a mistake. It might have been they might have been 950 because Uncle George's brother Dimitri lived in 950. But you know, it doesn't make any difference. You know why? Because this was basically the childhood home of Jacqueline Kennedy, Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy, the first lady. She grew up here. Her grandfather, Thomas Lee, constructed this building. He was a Fifth Avenue developer. He was also director of the Chase Bank. And he helped develop One Chase Plaza, which is the Chase headquarters. A lot of wealthy people, famous names connected with this building. Now, I'll tell you right now, I told you Stephen Schwartzman lives in Rockefeller's old apartment. Now, Stephen Schwartzman was a partner and they founded Blackstone. They worked for Lehman Brothers, which was run out of Rockefeller Center, and his partner was Peter G. Peterson, and Peter G. Peterson lived at 810 Fifth Avenue, which was Nelson Rockefeller's old address. You see, you know, it's always a connection with the Rockefellers. It's always a connection with the Rockefellers. Always is. Yeah, but Jackie Kennedy grew up here. She's the one, well, I say grew up here, she was a young girl, she lived here with her parents. She's the one who named Georgie Marinchine Uncle George. Because Uncle George used to play tennis with the Bouviers at their private estates in Hampton. They used to play at the Lasada, which was owned by Major, was his name. Major, they call him the Major. His name was Major Bouvier. Major Bouvier was his name. And he owned the Lasada. George used to go out there and play tennis with, that's where he became acquainted with Jacqueline Kennedy. And I think he also used to play tennis at Lasada, which was, Grey Gardens, which was owned by Jackie's aunt. Never saw the movie, the documentary Great Gardens. Supposedly George had a romantic interest in her at one time. Big Eddie and Little Eddie. Big Edie and Little Edie. Quite a story there. Big Edie was Jackie's aunt. You should watch that movie Great Gardens sometime. It's a documentary. Well, George was out there supposedly, and that's how he became acquainted with the Bouviers. Supposedly it was Uncle George's brother, Dimitri. I'm not sure how, but he was going out there playing tennis. And Jackie Kennedy's stepfather, Janet Lee Bouvier, well, she divorced and she remarried. She married Hugh Auchincloss Jr. And now Auchincloss was related to the Rockefellers. Now, a lot of people don't know how that happened, but William Goodsell Rockefeller and Oliver Burr Jennings, who were standards of power, they were founding stockholders of Standard Oil. They married sisters, the Goodsell sisters. That's how they're related. And Oliver Burr Jennings was Hugh Dudley Auchincloss's grandfather, and Hugh inherited Standard Oil fortune. He was also a Standard Oil. He was a lawyer for Standard Oil too. And Jackie Kennedy's mother, Janet Lee Bouvier, married Hugh Auchincloss, who was related to the Rockefellers, to Oliver Burr Jennings and William Goodsell Rockefeller. See, there was two branches of the Rockefeller family. One was John Rockefeller's branch, and the other was William Rockefeller's branch. So these people are more related to William's side of the family. I'm actually here on Park Avenue today. It's 95 degrees. I found this little oasis of shade here. You know, Jacqueline Kennedy should have been seriously questioned about a possible role in her husband's death. But since it wasn't really a serious police investigation, it was just a whitewash cover-up. Like I said, she had a lot of connections to the JFK assassination because she was well acquainted with Jackie Kennedy, the First Lady, was well acquainted with Oswald's best friend, George Marinsheeds. How does that happen in a world of 250 million people? Well, it's because these were the richest people in America. This was Park Avenue, this was Fifth Avenue. They owned corporations together. They ran corporations. It was all a nucleus. It was a solar system revolving around a nucleus of the Rockefellers, Rockefeller Center and Rockefeller corporations and their banks. This was the solar system revolving around the Rockefellers. And these people ran the boards of corporations, and then these people partied together and joined social clubs together and played golf together and fell in love and got married. Or got married for financial reasons. I want to rotate this camera a little bit. This hole is really Park Avenue. This is what they call the Park Avenue Cowboys. We're in the pay of the Rockefellers. But I want to show you this thing here. Right here. See this here? I'm gonna try to go in there with my camera. I'll probably get kicked out. You see it? You see it? Right there. Asian Society. See, this is right across the street now. See, here's 740 Park. Okay, the home of John Rockefeller II. And here's Asian Society. See, the Asian Society was co-founded by John Rockefeller III and Henry Luce. I always talk about Henry Luce. He was Skull and Bones. He was one of the generals of Skull and Bones. He's the one who founded Time magazine. He founded Time magazine in the Tomb, which was a secret chamber for Skull and Bones meetings. And of course, he ran Time Life publishing empire for the Rockefellers out of the Time Life building in Rockefeller Center. By the way, the Clinton Foundation's in the Time Life building, but it all connects to the JFK because it was Henry Luce who bought the Zapruder films. Well, he bought the rights to them, and then he buried them in the archives of Time Life, 6th Avenue, which is right across from Exxon headquarters. You know, Standard Oil headquarters. Isn't it ironic isn't it odd that the Zapruder film traveled 800 miles to be right across from the Rockefeller Standard Oil Corporation? Does that strike you as odd? But Henry Luce was the guy. Now, if you go in there, I'm going to go take my camera in there. If they yell at me, I'll leave. And on the wall, you'll see the name of John Rockefeller III and Henry Luce. And Henry Luce connects to so much of the Kennedy assassination story and the Cold War and Skull and Bones, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And he's related, I think he's related to the Whitneys too. A lot of these people were intermarried multiple times, going back generations, and they married wealth. So I'm going to try to walk in there. Part of the entrance is open to the public, but if I see my camera, they might not let me in. I'm going to try to go in there, and like I say, John Rockefeller III and Henry Luce's names are emblazoned on the wall in brass and marble because they co-founded Asian Society. See, John Rockefeller II, he divided up the planet, the globe, into various sectors. He gave Asia to his son John Rockefeller III, and he gave Africa to David Rockefeller, and he gave Latin America to Nelson Rockefeller. Now, Nelson was not his father's favorite son. Nelson was a problem for John Rockefeller II. Nelson was kind of a terror child to his father. Very troubling, but we don't have to go into that. Just read David Rockefeller's memoirs. All right, I'm going to try to get in there. Just to show you the names on the wall, so you don't think I'm playing you. Hi, folks. I'm back. I'm on my hands and knees now. I'm in the middle of Park Avenue. This police car here is just coincidental. I don't know what's going on here, but it's just pretty coincidental. But this building here, I'm just going to pan the camera a little bit. See here? I see where the bus is. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buildings here. This is what they call the Pyne. This is very historic here. The Pyne-Davison block. Now all this has a history to, a lot of history here. A lot of history to the Rockefellers. See, this is what they call the Park Avenue Cowboy area. And believe me, the Park Avenue Cowboys were in the pay of the Rockefellers. I'm playing with my camera here a little bit. Yeah, I'm sitting here on the grass, and like I say, this police car is totally coincidental. Hopefully it'll move, but see, John Davison Rockefeller, Henry Davison, Henry Davidson. I forgot his middle name. It's significant too. Pomeroy. Yeah, I talk about the Pomeroys every once in a while. They connect to the city of Auburn. But they got some stuff going on here. See, that's why they're kind of nervous. See, I got the camera here. Maybe we'll catch some dignitary coming out. But I'm on the middle of Park Avenue. But see, all these four, let's say 4 buildings here, they go back to the Gilded Age. They were designed by McKim, Mead, White. They were the architects of the Gilded Age. And, they designed for the Vanderbilts and the Astors and the Rockefellers. Well, this building all this whole block was going to get demolished. And David Rockefeller's cousin bought it up. Strong, I think her name is. See, I'll pan the camera again. But you see that building right there in the middle of my lens? See that right there? A great kind of almost a tan sandstone look. That's the Council of Foreign Relations, started by the Rockefellers. But I'm going to go down there. We're going to talk a little bit about the Council of Foreign Relations right there. But this block actually, Nelson Rockefeller's, John Rockefeller, David Rockefeller's cousin bought it. Her name is over there on the plaque, but she doesn't go by Rockefeller. Yeah, it's Betsy. She don't go by Rockefeller. She married into some real big South American money. She got rid of the Rockefeller name, but I know it's a Rockefeller. But the history of this land goes back to a man named Moses Taylor, who was a wealthy landholder close with the Astor family. He owned all this land. You got to do more research. His name isn't on the block, but he really is the origins of all these ear rights and everything. But Moses Taylor owned the ear rights. The Taylor what they call the Taylor Bishop dynasty owned the air rights for the Time Life building in Rockefeller Center. Then again, Henry Luce, I told you, Asian Society, right down the street. I couldn't get in. I wanted to get in. They're locked. They're closed today, so I couldn't get you in there. And I don't think I'd have much luck getting a camera on in there, so that was only a hope. So they're closed today. So anyways, I talk about Henry Luce. See, Henry Luce, Time Life. Then again, the Zapruder film, Time Life, goes back to this block of property here. Moses Tyler, his ancestors, his descendants, the Bishop Tyler dynasty. Now here's where it gets interesting. Uncle George, his aunt, Mary Frances Bishop Taylor. I shouldn't say Tyler, it was Taylor. Francis Bishop Taylor, Moses Taylor, the Bishop Taylor dynasty. They owned a lot of Manhattan real estate. Very wealthy back in the 1800s and before that. I said Uncle George, Oswald's best friend, his aunt Nona, was married for a brief while to Francis Bishop Taylor. He's the patriarch of all his wealth, and he owned the air rights for the Time Life building. Then again, Time Life, run by who? Henry Luce, owned by the Rockefellers, but run by Henry Luce for the Rockefellers. David Rockefeller said, all the tenants in Rockefeller Center my father had a close identification with. Which basically means they owned them and ran them. And then they go back to the Zapruder film. It was actually stored there in the archive of the Time Life building. And it was hid from the American public. See, they're telling you they're going to get to the truth. Why is everything vaulted away and locked away behind bars and chain link fence? See, folks, there's no transparency. They're lying to you, they're criminals. And if you look at their behavior, you see what's going on. But this Henry Davison, Pomeroy Davison, was part of the secret this meeting at the Jekyll Island to set up the Federal Reserve Bank. He was part of that. I said, I don't know. The police being here is totally coincidental, folks. I don't know what they're doing. Totally coincidental. But I can't wait till they leave. I'm in my rights here in the middle of Park Avenue, and sunlight's high in the sky. All right. He might have he's got a dog. It's a canine union. Well, we ain't got to worry about that. We ain't got drugs on us. Okay, now, where was I? Yeah, Henry Davison, Henry Pomeroy Davison was one of the people who went to Jekyll Island when the Rockefellers set up the Federal Reserve banking ripoff. See, and I mentioned Paul Warburg. I mentioned Andrew Blinken, whose father, Donald Blinken, lives next to Henry Kissinger in River House. And Donald Blinken was for years an executive director with Warburg. Paul Warburg, and Kuhn Loeb, Solomon Loeb had his two daughters. One married Paul Warburg, one married Joseph Schiff. They merged with Lehman Brothers, and they were headquartered in Rockefeller Center for years. Now it's the Barclay Building. Lehman Brothers kind of fell downhill, but then it was evolved into Blackstone by Peter G. Peterson and Schwartzman, who lives right down the street in 740 Park. See, it all ties back to the Rockefellers. Let's see, one of these buildings here. Yeah, so he had 4 children. One was Skull and Bones, Frederick, and he ran for lieutenant governor of New York State, and guess who was on the ticket as governor? William Donovan, father of the CIA and the OSS, run out of Rockefeller Center. And then he was for years, Frederick Davison was for years director of the CIA, personnel director for the CIA. And his brother, I can't remember all their names, was on the board of Time Life magazine, then again, Henry Luce. Goes on and on and on and on. All goes back to the Time Life bill. All goes back to Henry Luce. And then it goes back to the Rockefellers. Okay. We're getting out of breath. Then he had a daughter, and she married some big shot with Time Life. See, remember the Zapruder film? I've been tired out, folks. It's a long day. Been lugging heavy cameras on in this baking sun. I might have to even move a little because the sun is catching up to me here. Okay, bear with me, folks. The truth takes a little pain. See, if I was a corporate sponsor, if I was selling you corporate goods, you see, they give you, but it's all fake news. I don't use the word fake. Bogus news, disinformation, and propaganda, and social engineering, and mind control, all, orchestrated by the Rockefellers to pretty much dumb people down to the Rockefeller plantation, make a search on the Rockefeller feudal estate. Yeah, so one son married a Stillman. See, they're related to the Rockefellers because the Stillman are related to the Rockefellers. See, I told you about William Rockefeller. His two sons married Stillman girls. Stillman's ran Citibank. And of course, the Rockefellers took it over. See, they were brothers and brother-in-laws at the same time. Who could ever do that other than the Rockefellers? Yeah, that's how they're related to the Rockefellers, to the Stillman family. And I think maybe the Stillman name is on some of those brass plaques. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to show you. I'm going to take a little walk. And what else can I tell you about these people? This Davison. What else can I tell you about this Davison? We got quite a police presence here today. I'm glad the police are on around. There was always talk about unleashed crime here in New York City, but I've been out here several days now, and I see nothing but people about their own business and doing their work and enjoying the city. Kind of a sweltering hot day. But have I covered it all? Yeah, Stillman. Yes. Stillman's were part of. He was the treasurer. One of the Stillmans was the treasurer for Life magazine. Now, how do I know this? Because I saw it in print. When Nelson Rockefeller in 1942, his cover was on Life magazine, and I went through I call it the credits, the publisher's page. Henry Luce's name is there, and C.D. Jackson's name is there, the Minister of Propaganda, and Rockefeller was on the cover. They talked about Rockefeller Center when Nelson was the coordinator, Mr. Coordinator, and the co-coordinators were John Hay Whitney and Wallace Harrison. I told you about those individuals. Very close to Nelson Rockefeller, probably all involved in the JFK assassination. Yeah, the Stillman. Stillman was treasurer of Time Life. Stillman was treasurer of Time Life. He's part of the wealthy Stillman family. See, they're all owned by see, that's what they do. They own these corporations. See, a lot of this money and wealth is held in trust funds. It's held in 501c3s. It's held in the Chase Bank, see? And because they control these organizations, they control the money. They might not own it, but they control it. See, and wealthy families merge with wealthy families through mergers, through marriages, blah, 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 blah. And they have secret control of all these things. See how it works? And then it goes to the Washington Post. See, it goes back to Newsweek. Newsweek was run by John Hay Whitney. It was run by Vincent Astor. It was run by Andrew Mellon. See, then they merged with the Washington Post. And Ben Bradley came out of the Washington Post. He came over from Newsweek to run the Washington Post. So you remember Phil Graham was the head of the Washington Post, but he was found shot to death after he told the world Kennedy was having a sexual relationship with Mary Pinchat. And then about a year later, Mary Pinchat was shot twice in the head at point-blank range. She was executed, probably because of her knowledge of, I believe she was in a position to connect Uncle George de Marine Sheets to Oswald and Nelson Rockefeller. And she was also married to a CIA agent named Cord Meyer, no relation to Eugene Meyer. And Meyer worked for Lazard, which operated out of 30 Rockefeller Plaza. Now Lazard operates out of 5600, the Rockefeller family office. Well, the Fortune 5 are all dead. David was the last to go. And Lazard, too, that brings up the story. I encountered his name, too. Felix Royerton. Royerton lived 812 Fifth Avenue with Nelson Rockefeller, same building with Nelson Rockefeller, so did Peter G. Peterson. who founded Blackstone. And Lazard Raritan was the one who bailed out New York City. And remember, who was vice president then? Nelson Rockefeller. And Gerald Ford told New York City, go to hell, about considering a bailout. And the next day, Nelson Rockefeller poked his finger in Gerald Ford's chest, and Ford had to reconsider. And then the bailout money came. See, it all ties back to. See, Watergate. See, talk about Nixon. Don't talk about Nixon. Tell me about Nelson Rockefeller. Watergate put Nelson Rockefeller one step from the White House, and if Squeaky Fromm had done her job, she was a Manchurian candidate, like Aswell was, being programmed out of the Rand think tank, run by Henry Kissinger. Ford would be dead, and Nelson would be life president for life. And well, then they said it another hit woman. 2 days later, by then the Secret Service decided to do its job, and they backed the crowds away from Ford, so she fired a couple shots. She wasn't a good shot, and she missed. She fired 2 shots at Ford and missed from across the street. Nelson Rockefeller must have been a picture of abject disappointment after all he went through, all the blood to become president of the United States. See, why he dropped off the ticket, I mean, he failed to assassinate Ford. We had to drop off the ticket because, see, the people were publishing articles that connected Vice President Rockefeller to Oswald. And those articles are posted on my website, richardjamesasocio.org. I'm going to get up and move this camera. I'm going to take a little walk across the street. And we'll go, I'll show you some of these name plaques. Hi folks, I was just walking down the street. I think this is 52nd Street. I see this name, Rockefeller Court. I gotta do some research on this.